Muchísimas gracias por invitarme a estar con vosotros y bueno, pues, dispuesto a escuchar lo que digáis.
Vale, vale. Yo no soy ninguna experta en el tema, el experto eres tú, así que bueno, esto un poco para abrir boca y que la gente se quede con ganas de más y como digo, en el futuro seguro que podemos hacer cosas juntos. Pero muchísimas gracias. How I got interested in audio description. Everything started at the, I don't know if you were here when the Montclair movie theater, they did a Real Abilities Film Festival. It was held in Montclair 2 years ago. I went to one of the movies and it was audio described. So I was fascinated by the technique and I thought that it had to do with language and with translation because it's a type of translation from the visual to the oral. So I started getting involved in that. I went to take a training course in Maryland in February. And from there, I got interested in the field as an academic research. In this workshop, it was given by Joel Snyder. You're going to be hearing his name a lot today. He's a big name in audio description in the US. He's the director of the audio description project of the American Council of the Blind. He has been doing audio description for theater, for movies since 1981, I think. And he had a PhD from the Center for Accessibility and Ambient Intelligence at the Universidad Autónoma de Barcelona, Spain. At this course, I was so fascinated that I thought that it would be very interesting to do the same thing in Spanish. So I got in touch with Antonio from Aristia and with La ONCE, the National Blind Association in Spain, and we started to have conversations for possible collaborations and projects. So here we are right now. The purpose of this talk, as I told before, is just to present basic concepts. So it's not going to be like a very comprehensive presentation. It's just an outline. This is the table of contents. These are the topics that we are going to be covering. So first of all, I would start by giving a definition. What is audio description and what is not? So audio description is the, and this is from Joel Snyder's book, The Visual Made into Verbal. Audio description makes the visual images of theater, media, and visual art accessible for people who are blind or have low vision. Using words that are succinct, vivid, and imaginative, describers convey the visual image that is either inaccessible or only partially accessible to segment of the population. So actually, audio description is not only for blind people. It's also for people who may be at the theater in a place or in a seat that only has a partial view of the stage, or for people who want to give or who want to have a sense of more details in a painting, in a play, in a performance, or in a movie. Those are the two websites that if you are interested, you may want to visit, because this is the audio description project of the American Council of the Blind. This is the project that Joel Snyder directs. So first of all, we are gonna watch a clip from the movie The Hobbit, so that you, if you have never heard audio description, you can get an idea of what it is.
The great eagles land on the rock and set the dwarfs down. Gandalf runs straight to Thorin, who unconsciously lies on the ground. Thorin Oakenshield makes no move. Bilbo Baggins approaches, stops, staring at the Dwarf King. Gandalf puts his left hand above Thorin's face, muttering a magic spell. The Dwarf King opens his eyes. Bilbo Baggins feels relieved. The other dwarfs help their king, who is standing up. Everyone looks at the Hobbit. Thorin begins to speak.
You.
Bilbo looks afraid.
What were you doing? You nearly got yourself killed.
Thorin comes closer to Bilbo.
Did I not say that you would be a burden? That you would not survive in the wild? And you had no place amongst us. I've never been so wrong.
The Dwarf King hugs Bilbo. The others start cheering. Thorin takes a step back and faces Bilbo.
I'm sorry I doubted you.
No, I would have doubted me too. I'm not a hero or a warrior.
other dwarfs follow his gaze. The group starts moving towards the peak of the rock. One by one follows the dwarf king. They reach the peak, overviewing a land called...
Okay, so this was what happens in audio description, and if you notice the audio describer, she's not talking all the time, and of course she's not talking on top of the dialogue, on top of the music. And even if there are seconds that she could be talking because nobody's talking, you have to leave some space for the blind person to breathe, to interpret, to assimilate the words. So you cannot be talking all the time like a parrot, because you will cause a headache to the blind person. So this is why I said that most important, we have to pay attention what is not audio description. So this is what is not audio description. We are going to see a clip from the French movie Amélie.
Amélie a soudain le sentiment étrange d'être en harmonie totale avec elle-même. Tout est parfait en cet instant. La douceur de la lumière, ce petit parfum dans l'air, la rumeur tranquille de la ville. Elle inspire profondément et la vie lui paraît alors si simple et si limpide qu'un élan d'amour, comme un désir d'aider l'humanité entière, la submerge tout à coup.
Venez, je vous aide. On descend et hop, c'est parti. Là, on croise la vague du tambour de la fanfare. Elle porte la vacances de son mari depuis qu'il est mort. Attention, hop. Tiens, l'enseigne de la boucherie Chevalier n'a perdu une oreille. Ce rire, c'est celui du mari de la fleuriste. Il a des petites rides de maïs au coin des yeux. Oh, dans la vitrine de la pâtisserie, il y a des sucettes Pierre Gourmand. Vous sentez ce parfum? C'est Pépone qui fait goûter ses melons aux clients. Allez, goûtez vos melons. Ah, chez Marion, il faut de la glace au calisson. On passe devant la charcuterie. 79 le jambon à l'os, 45 le travers demi-sel. On arrive chez le fromager, 12,90 les picodons de l'Ardèche et 23,50 le cabicou du Poitou. Chez le boucher, il y a un bébé qui regarde un chien qui regarde les poulets rôtis. Voilà, maintenant on est devant le petit kiosque et journaux, juste à l'entrée du métro. Et moi je vous laisse ici. Au revoir.
So what happened here is what precisely an audio describer is supposed not to do. Amélie is doing the audio description for the blind person, but look at his face, he's horrified. So you cannot be describing everything that is happening, you have to be selective. Also, one of the mistakes is that you cannot grab a blind person by the arm. It's the blind person who grabs you. So, because it can cause accident, because it's embarrassing for him. So she's doing everything that you are not supposed to do with a blind person. But I think it's very revealing for us as audio describers. So audio description is not only found in movies, it's also used in theater for performing arts, in commercials, TV commercials, in documentaries, and in museums. Audio description in paintings, in sculptures. I don't know if you have gone to a museum. You can have the audio description or the audio guide. It's not for blind people. It's for everybody. And actually, when I have the possibility, I always do that because I like to hear the description, because sometimes some details go unnoticed. So by hearing or listening to the audio description, I pay attention to things that otherwise I would not have seen. So there is also a source that you may go at home with more details if you want to find out more about audio description in art. And here you can find audio description of paintings, sculptures. I'm going to do an exercise with you. I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. We're going to hear an audio description of a painting, and then you're going to open your eyes. I'm going to show you the painting, and you're going to check if what you heard corresponds to what you are seeing. Okay? So we're going to do that.
Woman 1, painted 1950 to 1952 by Dutch-born American artist Willem de Kooning, 1904 to 1997. Oil on canvas, 76 inches high by 58 inches wide, 193 by 147 centimeters.
Woman 1 is a tall, rectangular painting, dominated by the powerful, ferocious, more than life-size figure of a woman. Big and bosomy, with broad shoulders, she fills the canvas from top to bottom. Her teeth are bared in a rigid grin, and her wide open eyes are so big they take up a third of her face. The whole canvas is painted in great sweeping swaths of colorful paint. Yellows, orange reds, greens, the bold colors from a child's paint box mingle with thick dominant globs of gray and white, smudged on the canvas with apparent abandon. The paint has been applied and scraped away several times. In places it has run and has dried in long trickles down the canvas. The figure, roughly outlined in black, merges with this hodgepodge of color. Her bold black eyes stare directly at the viewer. 2 dots for nostrils. An almost lipless mouth with long bared teeth and a skull-like head. There is no indication of hair. Large, rounded, bulging breasts suggest she's wearing a skin-tight white top or bra, with maybe a pink strap visible at the figure's right shoulder, on the left side of the painting. Her hands rest on her skirt, which is composed of rough, horizontal brushstrokes of yellow, orange, and blue. Salmon pink ankles emerge, with a suggestion of bluish-green, strappy shoes. She seems to be sitting perched on a green step or footstool.
Okay, so you can open your eyes. I hope that you didn't fall asleep. And does it look like this, what you heard or what you listened to? Something similar, something more or less? Okay, so we are going to come back to the lexical choices that the audio describer used for that painting. But I wanted to give you an example of another way of audio description, not only in movies. Talking about a little bit about guidelines and legislation, they depend on the country. For example, in the US, the American Council of the Blind has their own guidelines for performing arts, for movies. So if you want to see the guidelines for audio description, you can go to that website and you can download them. Then the Federal Communications Commission established accessibility requirements for all the TV sets and devices. In December 2016, it's mandatory that all the TVs that are created or manufactured after that time, they have the possibility of offering you a channel for audio description. So normally it's going to be called video description, and here the ACB had a discussion with the providers of TV services because they want to call it audio description and they insist of video description. But in any case, they have this possibility. It's a channel that is called SAP, Second Audio Program. But you have to be careful because sometimes the second audio program is Spanish. So in some TVs, when you go to this button, you're going to find the Spanish version, and you want the audio description actually. So if you go to that website, they will tell you the steps. They will tell you, depending on the provider, Comcast or whatever, on the TV, what to do. The interesting thing is that as of January the 17th of this year, in movie theater is a mandatory, the Justice Department, according to the Title III of the American with Disabilities Act, issued a final rule requiring movie theaters to have audio description, not only audio description, but closed movie captioning, mandatory for the audience. So they have to provide notice to the public about the availability of this service, and also the staff has to be able to accommodate you and give you this service. I was purchasing tickets for a movie this weekend, and on the website, the first thing I see, audio description is available upon request. So if you go to a movie theater, they should be able to give you the receiver, the headphones, and you can use the audio description. In Spain, we have la norma UNE y publicada por AENOR. Michael Martinez is going to talk a little bit about that. UNE is the Spanish Association for Standardization, and AENOR is the Spanish Association for Standardization and Certification. And the legislation in Spain is a little bit different. They have more regulation on TV channels, and the number of hours that broadcasting, it's mandatory to have audio description. In the public TV channels, it's going to be 10 hours minimum per week. In the private channels, it's going to be 2 hours minimum per week. But however, in the movie theaters, there is no mandatory. What is happening in Spain right now is that there is a company called What's Cine, the same thing as WhatsApp, What's Cine, and it's an app that you can download in your cell phone. So the blind people who go to the movies, if the movie has an agreement with this company, for free, the blind person can download the app in his or her cell phone and he can listen to the audio description. So what are the roles in audio description? Mainly 4 roles. The audio describer is the person who creates the script. The voice talent is not necessarily the same person. So the voice talent is a person who is gonna read, he's gonna voice the description. Sometimes it's the same person. For example, Joel Snyder, you're gonna hear a video clip from The Empire Strikes Back by him. He's gonna be the audio describer and he's gonna be the voice talent too. Consultant is the blind person who hopefully is gonna give you feedback. In many cases, before the movie is released, before the audio description is released for the public, you're gonna have the input of the blind person who's gonna tell you this works, this doesn't work, ideally. And the client, of course, is the visually impaired population or anyone that would need that service. This would be a sample of a script from the movie Harry Potter and El Misterio del Príncipe en español. Michael Martinez is gonna talk about that. And talking about the 4 principles of audio description. The general principle of the golden rule is what you see is what you say. So you don't say anything that is not, that you cannot see. You don't interpret, you don't give your opinions. So this is why so much similar, and it's a type of translation, because you don't interpret, you don't give your opinions. There are 4 pillars on which this golden rule is supported. The first pillar is observation. Audio describers must be acute observers, and they have to be able to see everything, although they are not going to describe everything. We are not going to be like Amélie, talking about all the time, like a parrot, everything that we see. You have to observe, and then we will see that you have to decide. But you have to observe everything. So I'm going to do another test with you. We're going to watch this video. It's a selective attention test.
This is a test of selective attention. Count how many times the players wearing white pass the basketball. How many passes did you count?
How many?
15. In the very beginning, it looked like that.
The correct answer is 15 passes. But did you see the gorilla?
Yes. Yeah, everybody saw that?
Yeah.
This video is from research by Daniel Simon.
How many people watched the gorilla? Okay, very good. Very good observation skills. Let's watch another one.
The monkey business illusion. Count how many times the players wearing white pass the ball. The correct answer is 16 passes. Mm-hmm. Did you spot the gorilla? For people who haven't seen or heard about a video like this before, about half missed the gorilla. If you knew about the gorilla, you probably saw it. But did you notice the curtain changing color or the player on the black team leaving the game?
Ah.
Let's rewind and watch it again. Here comes the gorilla, and there goes a player, and the curtain is changing from red to gold. looking for a gorilla, you often miss other unexpected events.
And that's something that an audio describer cannot do. So observation is the first pillar. Second one is selection. In audio description, more important than what to say is what not to say. In the same painting, I always compare audio description with a painting. When you are going to select your, you have a viewfinder, you're going to select what to paint in a landscape. You cannot paint everything, you have to select. Same thing in audio description, you cannot talk about everything in a scene, you have to select. So, for example, we have the famous painting Las Meninas by Diego de Velázquez, 1656. I'm sure that most of you have seen at least once this painting, right? So if you have to describe this painting, if you are the audio describer and you are hired to do the audio description for a museum, for El Prado Museum, you have to pay attention because here the most outstanding things, which is the Princess Margarita Teresa and her maids of honor, is not the most important thing. The more important aspects are those aspects which are unnoticed. For example, the first thing is that here we see that we have included two people, the king and the queen. Another thing interesting is that this person, this mysterious person on the stairs, is the queen's chamberlain, José Nieto Velázquez, who happened to be related to the painter. And the most interesting thing is that Velázquez himself, the painter, is there on the left, brush in hand. So what was supposed to be a royal portrait turns out to be a self-portrait of himself. But the most interesting things to me, at least, the mysterious thing is, what is Velázquez painting? One of the theories is that he's painting the king and the king, so this is not a frame, this is a mirror, and they are in front of him, so he's painting them, and the reflection is here. Some scholars says that that's not possible, because the position of the royal couple is not aligned with the gaze of Velázquez. So other people think that the theory is Velázquez is painting the princess. So there is a large mirror in front of them, and then the princess, he's painting the princess from the mirror. That's another theory. So all these things make this painting unique and mysterious. So if you happen to be creating a script for this, you have to be taking into account the things that are not so noticed, more mysterious. The third pillar is language. So lexical choices that are precise and expressive are needed when time is a factor and you just have a few seconds to describe a scene. If you remember in the Hobbit clip that you just watched, the audio describer doesn't say all the time look, watch, or see. She's using gaze into, stare at, see, viewing. So she's using a variety of lexical choices in verbs for the same action. And notice how powerful prepositions are in English. I always say that in my classes. Into, gaze into, stare at, towards. All these prepositions in Spanish, we are going to find that we cannot convey those meanings with prepositions. We will have to use verbs or adverbs. Also, if you remember the audio description of the painting, remember, smudged on the canvas, scraped away. That gives you an idea of the texture of that masterpiece. And also when she said she seems to be sitting perched on a green step or footstool, she doesn't just say she seems to be sitting perched. So that type of details, that type of precision is needed when you are doing audio description. So Snyder, the professor of the course that I took, always says that at the beginning, when he was a student and he was doing some audio description for the first time, he used to make lists of verbs. For example, and Michael would talk about it, walk. All the words in English that can relate to walk. All the words in English that can relate to look. So list of verbs, list of adjectives, list of adverbs. That helps a lot. And finally, the fourth pillar of or principle in audio description is vocal skills. Not only the words you say, but how you say them. Pronunciation, enunciation, intonation, word rate, and pauses. Pauses are very important when you convey meaning. I'm going to give an example. This is taken from that website. An English professor wrote the following words on the blackboard, and he asked the students in the classroom to read that sentence. The male students wrote the following punctuation. A woman without her man is nothing. All the female students in the classroom wrote, a woman without her man is nothing. So you see how punctuation changes completely the meaning. Pauses change the meaning. So same thing in audio description. So we are gonna watch now a clip, 3 clips. The first one without audio description is from the Strikes, Empire Strikes Back, El Imperio Contraataca. The first one without audio description, the second in English, the third in Spanish. The reason why I want to show you without audio description is to make you aware that when the blind person is watching a movie, all those moments that we don't have any dialogue and we listen to the music, for those, they are important for them. So imagine that you are blind and you cannot figure it out what is going on in this powerful segment. The audio description in English is by Joel Snyder. He did the script and was a voice talent.
He stretches his hand toward the weapon's handle. It wobbles slightly. He closes his eyes, reaches out again. It moves a bit more. The beast rises and lumbers toward him. The weapon leaps into his hand, and a long, smooth shaft of light glows from its tip. He frees his feet and drops down, then slashes out at the beast, severing its arm. He runs out of the cave into the storm, scrambling up a ridge and tumbling down the far side, a tiny figure struggling through the snow.
Okay, now I'm gonna watch in Spanish.
Luke alarga su mano hacia el sable láser semienterrado en la nieve. El sable permanece inmóvil. Luke cierra los ojos y abre su mano en dirección al sable. El sable se mueve en la nieve. El guampa se incorpora y camina. El sable sale de la nieve y vuelve a la mano de Luke, que corta el hielo que aprisiona sus pies y cae al suelo. De un brazo corta un brazo de guampa. Luke se va corriendo. Sale de la cueva y corre. Rueda por una ladera nevada. Se levanta y sigue corriendo. Han cabalga sobre un taután entre la ventisca.
So some of the differences that I wanted to point out are in this table. So we have the Empire Strikes Back in English, and notice the choice of verbs: lumbers, slashes, severing its arm, scrambling, tumbling, struggling. Very, very precise. Also the prepositions, the prepositions that are used, and for example, wobbles. In Spanish we have se mueve, camina, corriendo, corriendo. Those verbs don't give us that precision. Other differences: el sable, el sable, el sable, el sable 4 times, the weapon 2 times. And also the weapon's handle. So in English it's more precise, not the weapon, but the weapon handle. Another thing interesting, I don't know if you noticed, there is a change of meaning, un cambio de sentido. In the English versions, it says it wobbles slightly. In Spanish, el sable permanece inmóvil. If you remember, at the beginning, el sable permanecía inmóvil. Se mueve un poquito después. So here, the interpretation in English and Spanish varies. It's not the same. So exactly the same problems that we have in translation with change of meanings. To finish my part of the presentation, I'm going to just mention some of the topics that are very, they are now being discussed in the realm of audio description in the academic research. One is the principle of objectivity. This golden rule, what you see is what you say, has been challenged. So many scholars think that we need a more creative audio description, one that tells you about the emotions, cinematic terminology, and some of the results of this study show that the blind population are more engaged and experience more immersive viewing experiences when they are exposed to creative, emotional description and not so much objective descriptions. What is cinematic style? The golden rule says that you are not supposed to mention terminology related to the cinema, for example, close up or aerial shot, something like that. However, there is a movement of researchers that think that those aspects are important to give a more involving and engaging experience for the viewer. So for example, the difference between outside in the rain, rain tins down, Laura runs along the pavement, head bare, face screwed up against the rain, versus outside in the rain, rain tins down, Laura runs away from us along the pavement, head bare, cut to a close shot of her face screwed up against the rain. So notice the parts that are in yellow, you're gonna notice that that's the camera talking. Or for example, she closes the glass door of the telephone booth, picks up the receiver and drops coins in the slot. Viewed through the glass wall of the telephone booth, Laura enters, picks up the receiver and drops coins in the slot. So the viewpoint is different. Another topic in research is what to do with gestures and facial expressions. Are you supposed to say them objectively, or you are supposed to interpret those facial expressions? For example, are you supposed to say literally she's frowning, or she's angry, she's sad? So those are different strategies. There is a very interesting study from the movie Inglourious Basterds by Quentin Tarantino, where this movie, I don't know if you have seen it, but it's very important because of the facial expressions and the gestures. Those facial expressions are going to be presented in close-ups, and also the gestures are going to be cross-culturally different. For example, there are many Italian characters doing gestures like this that could be interpreted differently in different cultures. So that's a challenge for the audio describer if you are audio describing that in another culture. So for example, they did a study of objective audio description versus subjective audio description, for example, and the results were different. Her lips are slightly apart and her pupils dilated. She lowers her eyes, squints them, and raises her lip corners slightly, versus she has dreamy eyes and smiles softly. So the blind population preferred the subjective audio description. Another example, she shifts her weight from foot to foot, her eyes are wide open, versus she looks frightened. So people prefer that. His legs wide apart, his hands in the pockets. Self-confident and nonchalant, he blows out the smoke. They prefer that. So these are some of the lines of research that are happening right now in audio description. Those are the references, and this is all on my part. Okay? So now we are gonna, thank you.
Hola a todos, vamos a discutir una estudia comparativa entre dos versiones de las películas Harry Potter y El Misterio del Príncipe y Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. De la perspectiva de audiodescripción como una técnica de la traducción. Vamos a empezar con una definición, lo que es la audiodescripción. Según UNE, de la norma española que dijo la profesora García Vizcaíno, tenemos una definición aquí. La audiodescripción es un servicio de apoyo a la comunicación que consiste en el conjunto de técnicas y habilidades aplicadas con objeto de compensar la carencia de captación de la parte visual contenida en cualquier tipo de mensaje, suministrando una adecuada información sonora que la traduce o explica de manera que el posible receptor discapacitado visual percibe dicho mensaje como un todo armónico y de la forma más parecida a cómo lo percibe una persona que ve. Una de la historia de lo que es la audiodescripción. La audiodescripción que inventado por la Dr. Margaret Feinstein en el año 1981. En 2009, el ACB, lo que es el American Council for the Blind, fundó el proyecto de descripción audio, o ADP, Audio Description Project. Tenemos aquí algunas definiciones y la terminología que es común en el mundo de la audiodescripción. Es muy importante entonces porque vamos a hablar y discutir variaciones entre las versiones de la película Harry Potter en inglés y en español. Todas las definiciones vienen de la UNE y vamos a discutir algunas definiciones. La primera es una bocadilla de información. Un bocadilla de información es definido como es cada una de las descripciones que se insertan en los huecos de mensaje. Únicamente debe contener la información necesaria que explique los aspectos visuales relevantes para una percepción más completa de obra. Entonces, la bocadilla de información es el mensaje que manda el audiodescriptor en el guión de audiodescripción. El hueco de mensaje es el espacio útil para contener bocadillas de información. Dicho espacio debe estar limpio de diálogos y de sonidos relevantes para la comprensión de la obra. Entonces, un hueco de mensaje, cuando tenemos personajes en una escena, no está hablando, es importante describir qué está pasando en la escena. Entonces, en esas oportunidades, se llama esa oportunidad un hueco de mensaje. La aplicación de la técnica. Es muy importante seguir de vocabulario de la película en que el audiodescriptor está describiendo. En temas del público, como tenemos en Harry Potter, es una población juvenil. En otras películas tenemos una población o un público infantil y en otros adultos. Terminología específica apropiada. Es un muy buen ejemplo que tenemos el Harry Potter porque hay muchas palabras que son únicas del mundo de la magia, específicamente el Harry Potter. Un ejemplo muy sencillo es The Death Eater. El Death Eater, o en español es un mortífago. Es muy importante usar este léxico porque todos que leen los libros y todos que ven a las películas y los ciegos que experiencian la película, podemos usar las mismas palabras que usan los personajes en la película. Entonces, para el audiodescriptor es importante consultar la documentación referente al entorno de la obra. Además, las preguntas que necesitamos contestar y que debemos describir en una audiodescripción es la siguiente. ¿Cuándo, dónde, quién, qué y cómo? Además, es importante no describir solo cuestiones, pero cuando está repasando que han descrito, es importante que sabemos de contestar estas preguntas. Entonces, ahora vamos a mirar dos versiones de las películas Harry Potter. Pero es importante recordar que la Harry Potter y el misterio del príncipe, no la adaptación audiodescrita, pero la adaptación normal, es una adaptación, no es una versión original como es el Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Entonces, enfrentan al audiodescriptor varios problemas y obstáculos que necesitamos enfrentar y describir en una manera única. Diferencias lingüísticas entre el español y el inglés son varios, pero importante de esa estudia es comparativa, es el poder de verbos en inglés y también en el español. Tenemos ejemplos aquí del poder de los verbos en inglés. Muchos de los verbos en inglés tienen una calidad estética. Porque si voy a usar una de las palabras de la lista del inglés, como tenemos aquí, walk, traipse, lumber, saunter, stroll, trudge, plod, hobble, and strut, evoque en la mente una imagen distinta de los otros. Porque si voy a pensar de walk versus traipse versus lumber, puedo describir a una otra persona exactamente qué está pasando de la personaje. Entonces es un verbo más concisa, más lleno de sentimiento. También en español tenemos una lista larga de palabras que significa walk, caminar, andar, pasear, tratar, vagar. De los primeros 4 es la misma palabra, pero llevan la misma significa. Entonces, para un ciego que está mirando una película, es difícil entender qué está pasando exactamente a un personaje. Entonces, necesitamos usar en español verbo más un adverbio, mientras en inglés podemos usar solo el verbo. Entonces, cuando pensamos de los huecos de mensaje en que vamos a poner un bocadillo de información, es importantísima que seleccionamos las palabras más específicas, inglés y español, a llenar este espacio correctamente. Que dijo la profesora García Vizcaíno, hay múltiples versiones de la audiodescripción, creativa y objetiva. No es una cosa distinta de una lengua, pero es posible usar el español, el francés, el italiano, el inglés, observar y describir en una manera creativa versus una manera objetiva. Y una otra pregunta que necesitamos preguntar y contestar en la audiodescripción es ¿qué es importante? Porque en los huecos de mensajes tenemos un poco oportunidad de describir todo lo que está pasando al ciego. Una pregunta muy común es ubicación versus atributo. Y vamos a ver unos ejemplos de estas diferencias entre el inglés y español.
In terms of like audio description, when you know that it's like if you get it's like a bad translation of a movie, is it going to affect the audio description?
Absolutely. In Spanish adaptations of English films, you're presented various obstacles that you need to face as an audio describer, mainly because of the amplification of the language from English to Spanish. As we should all be familiar with in translation, typically what you may have is 5 or 6 words in English. It may translate to as many as 10 to 15 words in Spanish. So with that in mind, those huecos de mensaje, which are like basically your spaces, your scene spaces that you're going to have, become much smaller. So not so much the quality of the translation, but just the fact that you start with an English movie and then convert that to the Spanish language is going to present further problems for an audio describer. Like we'll see here, if we get the opportunity finally to watch these 2 scenes, the speaking parts of the characters and the dialogues of the English version versus the Spanish version are actually longer in the Spanish version and thus allow for a shorter period of time for the audio describer to afford the opportunity to explain what is exactly happening for the blind person. So in these 2 identical scripts that we're going to discuss, the English version of the audio described script here is actually longer. in the exact same amount of time in the exact same scene, it takes 353 words, or the audio describer in English has the opportunity to use 353 words, whereas in Spanish only 326. So for audio description purposes, it actually works kind of counterintuitively, whereas in English it's typically shorter. We have more opportunity to describe what it is that's happening. And we're going to discuss further.
The Spanish version, can we try?
Yeah, we could try the Spanish version at least.
Is that a different tab?
Okay. Entonces vamos a ver la versión española de Harry Potter y el misterio del príncipe, en la escena de la casa de Horace Slughorn.
Varitas fuera, Harry.
Saquen las varitas. Caminan sigilosos por la casa, alumbrando con ellas y mirando alrededor. Pasan a una habitación que tiene muebles volcados, cuadros vencidos y arañazos en las paredes. Iluminan tenuamente la estancia con sus varitas. Hay un periódico en el suelo con el artículo de Harry y una foto suya. Caen gotas de color rojo sobre el periódico. Harry mira al techo iluminando con la varita. Hay un desconchón y le cae una gota roja en la frente. Dumbledore toca la gota y la prueba. Se gira hacia el ruido. El profesor se acerca despacio a un sillón que hay en una esquina con dos zapatos asomando bajo él. Dumbledore toca el sillón con la varita. Es un hombre.
No hay necesidad de desfigurarme, Albus. Debe admitir que resultas un señor muy convincente, Horace. Solo me hace falta un buen tapizado. El relleno lo llevo de forma natural. ¿Qué me ha delatado? La sangre de dragón. Oh, ya, presentaciones. Harry, quisiera presentarte a un viejo amigo y colega mío, Horace Slughorn. ¿Horace? Bueno, tú ya sabes quién es. Harry Potter. ¿A qué viene tanto teatro, Horace? No estarías por un casual esperando a alguien más, ¿verdad? ¿Alguien más? No sé qué quieres decir. Está bien. Los mortífagos llevan casi un año intentando reclutarme. ¿Sabes lo que es eso? No importa lo que les digas. Por eso no permanezco en el mismo lugar más de una semana. Los muggles que viven en esta casa están en las Canarias. Pues deberíamos recoger un poco antes de que vuelvan, ¿no crees? Sí. Cuidado.
Mueve su varita en el aire. Los vidrios del suelo se mueven. La lámpara se recompone. Espejos, libros, muebles y lámparas vuelven a su sitio. Los escombros vuelan hacia el techo y se arreglan los boquetes. Harry mira sorprendido. Mira el suelo extrañado. Está pisando un colgante de vidrio que se mueve. Levanta el pie y el colgante vuela hasta la lámpara.
Ok.
Qué divertido.
Ok, es la versión de español. La parte de esta escena que es más importante es cuando se recompone la lámpara, cuando usa la magia el Dumbledore y Horace Slughorn. Porque vamos a ver en la versión inglés una gran diferencia entre el español, si podemos.
The tips of their wands could glow like torches.
Horace.
The house is in a mess. Pictures hang at angles. There are scratches on a doorframe. Harry and Dumbledore enter the sitting room where the furniture is toppled over. The room has been completely trashed. A copy of the Daily Prophet lies on the floor, the one with Harry's picture. As Harry stares down at the paper, a spot of blood drops onto it. Harry looks up. Plaster has broken away, revealing blood-stained rafters. A drop lands on his forehead. Dumbledore wipes the blood off Harry's forehead with a finger. and tastes it with the tip of his tongue. Dumbledore glances suspiciously around the room. He fixes his eyes on an overstuffed comfy armchair and slowly walks towards it. Harry follows. Dumbledore prods the armchair with his wand. A man in disguise.
You need to disfigure me, Albus.
Well, I must say you make a very convincing armchair, Horace.
It's all in the upholstery. I come by the stuffing naturally. What gave me away?
Dragon's blood.
He spots Harry.
Oh.
Oh yes, introductions. Harry, I'd like you to meet an old friend and colleague of mine, Horace Slughorn. Horace? Well, you know who this is.
Harry Potter.
So what's with all the theatrics, Horace? You weren't by any chance waiting for someone else, were you?
Someone else? I'm sure I don't know what you mean. Oh, all right. The Death Eaters have been trying to recruit me for over a year. Do you know what that's like? You can only say no to these people so many times, so I never stay anywhere more than a week. The Muggles who own this place are in the Canary Islands.
Well, I think we should put it back in order for them, don't you? Mind?
Dumbledore sweeps his wand over the room. Bits of broken glass fly towards a shattered chandelier. It rehangs itself from the ceiling. Harry steps aside as a vinyl disc returns to a record player. Books fly back onto shelves and a grand piano rights itself. The missing plaster renews itself on the ceiling and Harry smiles. He looks down at his feet. Trapped under his trainer is a piece from the chandelier. He raises his foot and it zooms up to its rightful place.
That was fun.
Ok, entonces hay gran diferencias entre las dos versiones. Porque el tiempo vamos a discutir solo una parte de esta escena y podemos ver aquí. Okay, here in the English version, we see exactly what we were talking about before, the power of English verbs. It's very simple to see right here, where we have Dumbledore sweeps his wand, which, as we can all imagine, if we were to close our eyes and think of what kind of imagery that evokes in our mind, it is very specific, like a glancing blow across the entire front of someone with his wand, which is very indicative of what the character is doing in the movie. So for the purposes of audio description, it saves us a lot of time. It's a very concise way of describing accurately to our blind moviegoer what exactly is happening. Mientras en la versión español, mueva su varita en el aire. Mientras es verdad que lo que está pasando en la escena es Dumbledore está usando la varita, pero ¿en qué manera usa la varita? Necesitamos explicar más. Entonces, típicamente en el español vamos a usar un verbo más un adverbio. Pero no tenemos el tiempo, la oportunidad a usar más palabras porque la banda sonora y los sonidos en la escena y necesitamos continuar con el resto de la escena. If we continue here, we have other aspects here as well that are going to be very, very different for us. So one benefit of Spanish that's not afforded in English is a very concise power, como se dice en español, la disincencia y el poder de los verbos que tienen en español. La lámpara se recompone. Es una frase muy concisa del español que describe qué está pasando en la escena, mientras en el inglés es más amplia. The bits of broken glass fly toward a shattered chandelier. It rehangs itself from the ceiling. La lámpara se recompone. Entonces es muy importante recordar que los límites definidos del tiempo que tenemos en un guión de la audiodescripción no es minutos, no es una distancia, es segundos, menos segundos que tenemos a la oportunidad de describir exactamente qué está pasando. So when we see here, we have it hangs itself from the ceiling. The bits of broken glass fly toward a shattered chandelier. It requires that our locutor, the voice actor who is going to be doing the audio description verbally for our blind moviegoer, speak in a much more hurried pace. And as we saw with Amelie, what happens to a blind person when they're experiencing that, or if you were just to close your eyes, it gets very harried and frazzled and you start to lose exactly what it is that you're seeing. So these are just a couple really small examples of the verb power within English that versus what we have in Spanish. One last one that I'll go to, because I know we're very short on time, and I apologize about the problems with the movie, is the last part there when in that scene when Harry picks his foot up. He raises his foot and it zooms up to its rightful place. Zoom, again, is a verb that is very, very, very explicative to what exactly is happening in the movie right there. Entonces, en la versión español tenemos la frase levanta el pie y el comandante vuela hasta la lámpara. Entonces tenemos un ejemplo del poder del verbo más el verbo en español versus el poder de solo un verbo en el inglés. Entonces vamos a continuar con la presentación porque necesita terminarlo antes de la hora. Ok, ¿cómo está la audiodescripción? Una técnica de la traducción. Es una adaptación de una forma a otra. Es importante por los traductores a saber cómo preservar el mensaje durante el proceso de la traducción. Es muy fácil con los límites definidos de una audiodescripción a cambiar el mensaje porque las necesidades del tiempo. Entonces necesitamos recordar con las herramientas que tenemos en el ámbito de traducción a usar y repasar el guión antes de entregándolo. Un conocimiento de la lingüística y cómo usarla de una manera apropiada para un público específico. Entonces, el conocimiento de la lengua es que discutimos ya de el poder de los verbos en inglés y el poder del verbo más adverbio en el español. Y también la amplificación de una adaptación de inglés al español. Y podemos adivinar que vamos a tener un poco menos tiempo para adaptar una versión para los ciegos en español que el inglés. Y además, una manera apropiada para un público específico. El público específico de esta película es un público juvenil. En otros lugares tenemos una población o público adulto o infantil. Y final, una adaptación a una población específica. No es solamente el español versus el inglés. Podemos ver la versión del Hobbit que vimos con la profesora García Vizcaíno. La audiodescriptor fue de, creo que Scotland. Entonces el acento y el dialecto fue de Scotland. Y tenemos aquí una versión del inglés de americano y el español de España. Es importantísima recordar las diferencias entre las dos. Y aquí tenemos las fuentes del the references from all of the slideshow here. La número española el número aquí y las dos películas. Entonces vamos a terminar. Entonces now we're gonna turn it over to Antonio. Yeah, for some questions.
Okay, so we have like 5 minutes for questions. Thank you so much, Michael, for the presentation. And who wants to shoot a question? Matt? ¿Cómo pongo la cámara para que lo vea Antonio? ¿Así? ¿Lo enchufo él? Matt, you want to stand up, please? So that he can see you? I don't know, Antonio. No sé si lo ve Antonio.
Un techo precioso. Ahora hay gente.
Hay un estudiante que te quiere hacer una pregunta. No sé si lo ves.
Sí. Hola, hola. Buen día. Es que
Buenos días.
en la traducción usualmente tenemos que, digamos, evitar usar anglicismos en español, porque usualmente hay palabras mejores en español. Pero en este caso, para la descripción de audio, se puede usar anglicismos porque creo que escuché algo como chequear. ¿Sería mejor usar anglicismos para mejorar el entendimiento o debemos evitarlos?
¿Ha oído la pregunta, Antonio?
Muy entrecortada, pero creo haber entendido que si es mejor utilizar anglicismos
sí.
Para la mejor comprensión. ¿Era esa la pregunta?
Sí.
Sí.
Aquí no. Aquí en España no. Se debe usar un lenguaje lo más directo posible. De hecho, lo que procuramos es que la frase lance una imagen al cerebro. El ciego no está viendo nada. El ciego solamente escucha y todos los sonidos los está trasladando a su mundo. Entonces nosotros pretendemos que lo que le decimos al ciego sea concreto, sea exacto y que vaya directamente a una imagen. Por ejemplo, no le decimos del armario sale un hombre encapuchado. Lo decimos al revés. Un hombre encapuchado sale del armario. O el armario se abre, sale un hombre encapuchado. Es decir, siempre las lanzamos las frases de forma que se crean imágenes por sí mismas, que él tenga que pensar lo menos posible.
Gracias.
Muy bien, muchas gracias. ¿Otra pregunta?
Sí, tengo esta pregunta que por supuesto y conozco que hay que ser muy sucinto y muy conciso, sobre todo nosotros tenemos experiencia con subtitulado. Sin embargo, con respecto a la selección de verbos, me pregunto hasta qué punto, ¿no es cierto?, depende de la recepción también, porque un poco en defensa del idioma español, ¿no? Hay verbos, lo que pasa es que quizás a lo mejor no se usen, pero digamos, podemos encontrar verbos o usar inclusive verbos de manera metafórica para dar una imagen precisa, saliendo un poco del verbo genérico, pero ¿es eso posible o no es conveniente?
Sí y no. Sí es conveniente, dependiendo de la poética de la película. Hay películas que lo piden porque son películas suficientemente lentas, con suficiente poesía en sí mismas como para poder hacer lo que acabas de mencionar, o sea, darles un verbo metafórico. También es cierto que digo que no, porque hay que ir muy al grano y muchas veces tenemos muy poquito hueco. Entonces, dependiendo también del país, pues tenemos que decirlo de una forma u otra, en el mismo español. Aquí en España utilizamos muchísimo el verbo coger. Sabemos que en Sudamérica no se puede usar el verbo coger. Hay que decir tomar, agarrar, cualquier otra cosa. Pero es que significan dos cosas diferentes. Pero aquí es lo que es. Y aquí hay que decirlo de esa manera porque si alguien dice le toma la mano, tiene un significado muy diferente a le coge la mano. Coger la mano es ir agarrados de la mano y ir pues paseando cogidos de la mano, mano con mano. Sin embargo, le toma de la mano es una acción muy específica. Eso en Sudamérica no ocurre. Tomar de la mano es, pues bueno, es una situación habitual. Tenemos que tener cuidado en ese sentido, sí.
Muy bien, muchas gracias. ¿Alguna pregunta más? Última pregunta, Marta.
¿Cómo se soluciona el tema del humor? ¿Cómo se puede explicar con audiodescripción, cuando ya de por sí es complicado traducirlo para que pues eso, la persona lo comprenda? Aparte, si se pone un poco más complicado siendo personas ciegas.
Bueno, hay películas que permiten que el chiste se pueda contar mediante imágenes. Hay otras películas que apoyan con la imagen, apoyan una forma de hablar, y esa forma de hablar no tendría ningún sentido gracioso si no es por el gesto que están haciendo. Entonces, cuando es este caso, lo que hacemos en la audiodescripción es ir al gesto. Cuando por el contrario se entiende perfectamente porque es un chiste directo, nos callamos la boca y que el ciego lo escuche como los demás. Hay otras películas en las que el humor no es con palabras, sino única y exclusivamente con gestos. Entonces, lo único que hacemos es describir qué movimientos o qué acciones son las que provocan ese chiste y por qué. Tenemos películas hechas, por ejemplo, tiempos modernos, por ejemplo, de Buster Keaton. Hay películas mudas incluso que hemos hecho como con audiodescripción y la gente se ha reído bastante, precisamente porque vamos a lo que están haciendo en el momento en que lo están haciendo. Al ser una película muda, es nuestro paraíso. El paraíso del audiodescriptor es tener todo el hueco del mundo para poder decir lo que quiera, y en una película muda lo tenemos. En una película como por ejemplo Los del Túnel, es una película reciente, es de humor, no tiene ni un solo chiste, son todo conversaciones normales, pero te partes de risa por los gestos que hacen y por la forma de decirlo. Cuando la risa está provocada por los gestos, nosotros contamos el gesto. Cuando la forma de la risa viene dada por el tono del actor, nos callamos la boca y que sea el tono del actor el que le haga al ciego recibir ese chiste, esa forma de decir. La audiodescripción no es una ciencia exacta, con lo cual en cada película hay que hacerlo de una manera. Cada película es un mundo maravilloso y te plantea retos. ¿Cómo se dice el humor? No se dice. Simplemente está implícito en la película. Cada una requiere, como acabo de decir, una forma de hacer.
Muy bien.
Y afortunadamente con todas.
Muy bien, pues muchísimas gracias. Ya veo que hay estudiantes que tienen clases, pero yo creo que hay gente que se ha quedado con ganas de más, Antonio, así que ya volveremos a conectarnos contigo, espero. Y un aplauso para Antonio, muchísimas gracias.
Gracias a ustedes.
Y nada, espero que hayáis disfrutado todos mucho, que hayamos metido ahí el gusanillo de la audiodescripción y que nos quedemos con ganas de más, ¿vale? Venga, buenas tardes. Hasta luego, Antonio, ya hablaremos.
Vale, gracias.
Hasta luego, muchas gracias, chao. Chao.